All right, everyone. You've got 2/3 of the not so grand jury here. You got Geoff and Derrick, who are putting together a very brief sidebar for you.
Yep.
We're going to talk about we're going to talk about some listener feedback. Not much, but few listener feedback items that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about art theft, which was obviously directly from the Thomas Crown affair, and we're going to talk about a real life art theft case. And that's all Geoff. Geoff is in charge. Geoff doesn't do art theft, but yet he's going to talk about art theft.
Google thinks I did.
You are training ChatGPT to understand art theft and hope that it's not making up cases. But anyway, should we jump into listener feedback first, and then we can jump right into the art theft
Yeah,
stuff?
that sounds like a plan.
All right. So we have a little bit of listener feedback that I want to bring up. The first one is I've actually gotten some good feedback from King of the Hill, episode 10, season 10, where we talked about antitrust and contracts and the various other things. I didn't realize how many people were very interested in antitrust conversations.
Really?
So I did not realize that my background in antitrust, where I sort of gave a very base level of how horizontal and vertical price fixing, works in U.S. law and how that sort of worked in this concept. There were people that cared about that, which,
excellent.
One, I'm shocked, and two, thank you. So to the few people who have reached out to me, about antitrust law, thank you very much for listening and actually caring about that. We love you. Please keep listening. Other feedback that we've brought up. First, we have a comment on Apple Podcasts that was from about a month ago. Someone from the Scathing Atheist gave us a comment. The title is really interesting, which we've had worse.
The title is, quote, really interesting.
Correct. It's not really interesting. It is actually, quote, really interesting.
Yes. I didn't want to act like we were teasing with the title,
No.
that it was really interesting, and then not tell them what the title was.
Nope, that's the actual title. And the comment is, extremely interesting look into TV law. The show is extremely interesting. The takes from the lawyers shows a lot aspects of how subspecialized education they all get, but they know how to read into it, and great stuff. So it's a generally positive comment. They do mention that the audio could be better in certain episodes. We agree. We are a relatively low budget podcast. Moral Law PLC has put in tens of dollars into this podcast as the sponsor. Although I'm currently speaking to you on a brand new mic, so, we're starting to get to a slightly better level.
It's a work in progress.
We are getting there. I hope the audio has gotten better from the first few episodes. I do agree that some of the first few episodes were tough, but working towards it. So thank you for your comment. And then we have another comment on Spotify that was with regards to our Sidebar 3, where one of the comments we talked about was in X-Files, where we sort of dealt with multiple listener feedback on the X-Files.
Yes.
We have
the Tombs episodes, right?
Tombs, right, where we all agree that he's a scary mofo who's, creeped many of us out. The comment is from someone named Rula, Rhullah, who said, I think you're misreading the X-Files scene. It's not that Mulder is better at reading the answers than the others. It's that everyone else dismisses the answers out of hand, as the notion that Toombs is a 100-year-old serial killer is patently absurd. I believe he's referring to the scene where they did the polygraph and Mulder is just sort of better at reading the answers. Listen, I have thought of that scene so often since we recorded that episode, possibly more often. I think there is potentially 7 different reasonable ways to interpret that scene. And all I'm going to say is the episode still entertains me, but I'm still very confused how Mulder is good at every single thing he could possibly do.
Yeah.
Mike's not here to possibly defend Mulder, because if there is someone of the three of us who would defend him, it's Mike. But I think Mike would agree that Mulder is just a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he certainly is.
Yes.
And it is a trope of X-Files. It's not a legal trope, so I'm not sure it would make Mike's list, but it is a trope of the X-Files and TV generally, that the guy who isn't the skeptic is going to be right. Whether you go back to like Indiana Jones or what have you.
Correct. And not only just right, good at everything.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to thank you for your comment. I will also, I also wanted to note that the previous comment from Apple Podcasts got here from the Scathing Atheist. So I want to thank the Scathing Atheist for having Geoff on and increasing our viewership.
Yes. Thank you to the Puzzle in a Thunderstorm crew.
Fantastic. All right, Geoff, I think you should jump into art theft, because why not?
Yeah. So we did the Thomas Crown Affair a few months ago now. And during that episode, we had a discussion about how art theft works in the real world, specifically as it relates to a case that was ongoing at the time. We ended up cutting it because there was a trial upcoming, and we thought, well, let's do this. Let's have it as a sidebar once we know the outcome of that case. Actually, those cases. And they were two cases, United States v. Trotta and United States v. Dombeck et al., meaning Dombeck is one of the defendants, and there were several others who are not named. That's the et al. At the end of that name. So let's drop in the bit that we previously recorded. This was recorded back on, I think, December 1st of last year. So this is before the trial of the defendants happened. The last thing that I want to mention is that just this year, there was announced a 20-year-long art theft ring that was sort of solved, or at least indictments were handed down for people involved. And I think it's worth mentioning because the lengths that the movie goes to make it this elaborate scheme are so beyond what most art theft seems to be. It is not sophisticated. Generally, you don't see people dressing up as Magritte paintings.
I would walk in these places and I would try to have either my niece or nephew. So I would kind of guide them over if I wanted to see a door or window, and then I would kind of film how far do I have to run after I get through this door.
You're bringing the kids like you're
bringing the
like
kids. I mean, come on, let's go over here, and then boom, get it on film, but not filming them. No, I want that window. I want that door.
Pick out and bring.
Much like an athlete, he'd prepare for the job by spending hours watching tape. In his case, his own shaky footage of potential targets and the closest exit.
Needless to say, they do not suspect you are casing the joint and doing your surveillance.
Not in a million years. I have a dorky look to me. I notice I don't look like a criminal at all.
He sure acted like one. Here he is in 2012. After smashing through a window and into the U.S. Golf Museum in New Jersey, he made off with the great Ben Hogan's trophies. Middle of the night, unarmed. It was the M.O. Trotta would replicate scores of times, confounding investigators for a quarter century.
Now, the Yogi Berra cases were something special. It was a special kind of bulletproof glass that was never going to shatter. So that's the one we used. I had the grinder with a rescue blade, and I actually cut the cases open, reached and grabbed the rings, went to the other case, pyramid cut the to get the two MVP plaques out also.
Alarm blaring, police were already on their way as Trotta ran across this field to meet his getaway driver.
Pretty much the way anything else is stolen, not these crazy elaborate schemes. And they went undetected for 2 decades until one of the guys happened to be pulled over with his like art theft kit in the back of in the trunk of his car.
His burglar's tools.
Right. And interestingly, as was the case in the Thomas Crown Affair, where it's going to be really hard to sell a now famously stolen Monet, they, among other things, they stole a Jackson Pollock, they stole an Andy Warhol painting, they also stole 9 World Series rings that were in the Yogi Berra Museum in New Jersey, and they couldn't sell them.
Get back to the house, laid the rings out. I wanted to try them on.
Did you?
I tried them all on. I just put them on just to see, and then the next thing that we did, we start with to dismantle them.
What did you do with the rings?
Cut them, melted them.
You heard right.
Bothers me.
Trotta and crew retreated to this rural Pennsylvania garage to melt down Yogi Berra's rings. He says they melted down much of their loot, the stuff that was too hot to sell, and brought the gold and gemstones to Manhattan's Diamond District, where a dealer paid the gang in cash, no questions asked. For all that priceless Yogi Berra memorabilia, Trotta says they got $12,000.
It's bonkers.
Which, intact, they would have been worth probably in the millions of dollars.
Yeah,
but they couldn't sell them for that.
Yeah.
So they sold them for a 10th or 100th of that.
If somebody steals the Mona Lisa and then a Mona Lisa goes on sale, they're probably connected.
Probably. Interestingly, the trial for that case is happening January 13th of 2025.
I won't lie, Jeff. Kind of funny how I even forget we had that conversation. So this just shows a little bit about how recording multiple episodes works, where you talked a lot about that, and I don't remember it until this exact moment when I listened back to the same audio.
You didn't have the clips before. But yeah, I mean, that was 5 months ago. So, and these, our recordings, once we're done, a lot of it goes out of our heads.
That is true.
But so that trial started in late January, went into February. It was about a month-long trial of these various defendants. I think there were, I don't want to make up a number, but roughly half a dozen defendants that were being tried here. The main sort of ringleader being the gentleman you heard in that 60 Minutes story, Tommy Trotta. On March 13th, he was sentenced to 96 months in prison, and to pay restitution in the amount of $2.7 million for one count of theft of major artwork. He'd plea bargained some stuff. It's according to the U.S. Department of Justice's press release about this, but I just briefly want to run through some of the highlights of the things that he stole in this sort of ad hoc, very rough and ready MO. It's just fascinating that this is how they operated for 20 years. So, I mentioned there in the clip, he stole La Grande Passion from Andy Warhol and Spring's Winter by Jackson Pollock from the Everhart Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 2005. 10 World Series rings and 7 other championship rings, 2 MVP plaques, all belonging to Yogi Berra and together worth over $1 million in 2014. 6 championship belts, including 4 belonging to Carmen Basilio and 2 belonging to Tony Zale, stolen in 2015 from the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York. Never heard of it. Not a fighting fan.
No, Canastota.
Canastota?
Canastota.
Okay.
It may have been from relatively close to where I grew up. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. The U.S. Amateur Trophy and a Hickok belt awarded to Ben Hogan, which was mentioned in the video, stolen in 2012 from the USGA Golf Museum and Library. A bunch of trophies, $400,000 worth of gold nuggets stolen in 2011 from the Sterling Hill Mining Museum in Ogdensburg, New Jersey. A random hodgepodge of things that were easily available to them if they were willing to use an angle grinder and videotape the place beforehand. not complicated. So this all stands in very sharp contrast to what we saw in the Thomas Crown affair of this intricate. He has, I guess, had a special briefcase made that prevents the security doors from closing all the way, and hiring, a team of foreign nationals to helicopter in and rappel down and try and steal, or rappel up. Do you rappel up? Whatever. All very convoluted and makes for, a fun movie, but not at all a reflection of how this usually goes down. So we wanted to, since this was going on when our episode was released, we wanted to circle back and touch on this.
Ascend.
Oh, Ascend. Sure. Okay.
I got this, Jeff. I got some Googling for you.
Cool. not much for the prize fights or rock climbing. So, forgive me.
Who would have thought? The listener would think that that's just right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. So that is the story of Tommy Trotta and his theft ring, now buttoned up by the FBI, among other law enforcement agencies, thanks to a traffic stop.
What's really interesting is, apparently, I was just doing some brief research on this case. A lot of the guys that were defendants were all childhood friends of Trotta.
Yeah.
And he testified against a lot of them. I'm sure they're stoked.
I'm sure. Well, and it's fascinating to me that there was a trial at all, given he did this 60 Minutes interview where he talked about how he, that clip was from before the trial. So what was at issue? We don't have the trial transcript, but it's interesting to me that there still had to be a trial.
So again, we don't have the trial transcript. Trotta pled guilty, so he cooperated against the rest of them.
But he was found guilty by the jury on at least one art theft charge.
Right. But what I guess I'm a little confused about is he agreed to cooperate against the other people.
Sure.
And still got 8 years plus almost $3 million. That was
his restitution. Yeah.
That was his
$3 million.
$3 million in restitution. That was his light sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's odd to me that if you have a cooperating witness, I would assume that any deal that was made resolved all of his criminal charges, but no.
It's certainly confusing a little bit. Do you know if any of the other guys I know some of them were found guilty as well. Do we know if we have their sentences yet?
Yes. Dawn Trotta, his wife, was sentenced to 15 months imprisonment for conspiracy to commit theft of major artwork. Frank Tassiello was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment for conspiracy to commit theft of major artwork, concealment and disposal of major artwork, and interstate transportation of stolen property. And Ralph Perry was sentenced to 3 years of probation as well as a period of home confinement for conspiracy to commit theft.
It is so confusing that sort of the head of it was the one that pled and agreed to cooperate. That's not normal.
I don't think that that's normal, no. Usually it is some low-rung person flipping on the person high up.
In fact, that's normally why the FBI or any type of federal prosecutor would allow that, is so that they get the big guy.
Right, and here they seem to have kind of gotten both. They got the big guy to flip, and he got the highest sentence of everybody by...
It's really interesting.
By many multiples.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But as you said, I think the sort of key to all of this is that art theft in this world is not what the Thomas Crown affair is. It's not what Ocean's,
the Ocean's quadrilogy.
Ocean's 12, where they were doing ridiculous ways to steal from museums. It is smash and grab. Yeah.
I don't remember any of Ocean's 12. Interesting.
Trust me, you're better off.
Okay.
Ocean's 11, fantastic. Ocean's 12 existed. Ocean's 13, pretty good end to the trilogy.
Okay, good to know.
At least that's my opinion. Others can disagree.
Sure.
Send us commentary if you disagree.
Yeah, tell us what you should we do one of the Ocean's movies?
Ooh, I'd have a lot of fun with the Ocean's movies. So
yeah, I feel some maybe gambling regulations, the gaming commission, all that stuff. That might make for a good episode.
And Derek may know a little bit about that, just a little bit.
A little.
Yes.
You've never been to Vegas, right?
Only, I think we're about at the 20th time now, give or take. So no, barely ever have appeared in Vegas.
Gotcha.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting, Jeff. I love the follow-up. And again, thank you to all of our listeners for all of your commentary. The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa P. LLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2025, all rights reserved.